And hello family, welcome to Property Focus, the show that helps you navigate the ever-evolving world of real estate. In today's episode, we're going to be diving into the intricacies of trust, and we've got none other than Daniel Musyoka, who's practiced for over 31 years, to tell us more on this. My name is Peter Ngigi. Welcome to Property Focus. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to have a seasoned lawyer with us here today, and that is Daniel Musyoka. Welcome to Property Focus, sir.
Thank you, Peter, for that wonderful introduction. As you've said, my name is Daniel Musyoka, and I've been in the practice for 30 years, or in fact, 31 years to be precise. And my mainstay as an advocate is more on the litigation side, doing commercial litigation and family disputes, among others.
Interesting. Now, in this episode, we're going to be looking at trusts. So we'll get right into it. Why don't you tell us about the legal considerations when you're starting out a trust?
Thank you. I think the starting point is to understand what is a trust. Because once we understand what is a trust, we can now consider the legal consideration when establishing a trust. A trust is a legal relationship between three parties. There is the person called the settlor. That is the person setting up the trust. Then there is the trustees. These are the people or the person appointed by the settlor to manage the trust asset. Yes. Then there are the beneficiaries, who can either be individuals or corporate entities. And those are the people who are the ultimate beneficiaries, as the name suggests, who are supposed to benefit from the trust.
Okay.
Yes, and what happens is that the settlor then transfers the assets, the trust assets, to the trust entity, and so that the trust entity now is in charge of those assets.
So, Daniel, what are the key considerations when setting up a trust here in Kenya?
Number one is the purpose of the trust.
Mm-hmm.
That means you need to clearly define why you are creating the trust, whether it is for asset protection, whether it is for charitable purposes, or whatever other purpose you are creating it. So the purpose is very key. Now, the other one is the type of trust. You are creating trust. Is it a living trust or a testamentary trust? A living trust is the one which is when you are alive. A testamentary trust is the one which takes effect after you are dead. It replaces a will. That is why it is called a testamentary trust. But a living trust can also become a testamentary trust, because once you die, then it can take over, become a testamentary trust.
Okay.
Yes. The other key consideration is the selection of the trustees. That is so key, because if you choose the wrong trustees, then everything which can go wrong will go wrong, especially if it's a family trust and you pass one. Then, of course, the other thing is to take into account is the beneficiaries. You need to consider, if it's a family trust, is it for your children and grandchildren, and are there people you are excluding from that categorization?
Mm-hmm.
Then the funding, where will the money to fund the trust come from? Those are the trust assets where the money will come from.
Very well answered. What are now some of the benefits of having property in Kenya registered under a trust? We've heard a lot about trust, but what are some of these benefits?
The benefits of trust are numerous, and I cannot just mention but a few. One is succession planning. As I've said, especially in the area of estate management, it's also very good for asset protection. Once you have assets and those assets go to trust, your creditors have no access to it. So you protect yourself. And it happens your person especially, your creditors come like vultures, and then they take away all what you have. So it's a very good way of protecting your assets from your creditors. And even when you are alive, once you transfer, they are inaccessible to your creditors. Of course, there are other tax benefits, and I think we'll go into them. There are tax benefits which come alongside, because certain kind of trusts are exempted. Even though transferring, there are certain exemptions you can get, such tax benefit when you are having a trust. The other benefit is this privacy. Well, you might not want somebody to know. There are so many entities in this country where you don't know exactly who owns them, and you have seen debates who owns this, who owns that. But there are layers and layers of trusts which are established so that you are not exposed. People don't know what you actually own as a person, but because you own it through a trust, then there's flexibility which comes with it, because you can tailor-make your trusts to suit your needs. Because you can, for example, say depending on if it's a beneficiary, you can say a certain beneficiary will only get this when you have done this, or you have reached a certain age. So you can be flexible. Unlike a situation where if you pass on and there is a will, then or there is no will, the beneficiary are supposed to get their shares immediately. Then, and of course, the one key benefits of a trust, especially for a family, you avoid the family disputes. There are cases which we know in this country for some of the prominent personalities, some of which go to 40 years in the courts, and they are still running, and they are far from over. So if you have a trust, you avoid those family feuds.
Very well answered. Now, before I even go to my next question, speaking of the family feuds and the conflicts that usually arise, how then do you appoint the trustees?
The key consideration to appoint a trustee is the purpose of the trust. Are they trustworthy? Because it's a trust, and you should appoint people you can trust. The main problem with which comes with trust is any trust, whether it's family trust or holding shares in your behalf. If you appoint somebody you don't trust, that person can turn against you. So you need to be careful in the selection of the trustee, and then the terms of engagement of the trustee. Those are very key.
What's the process of transferring property to trust? What does that entail?
So we are starting with a situation where this property is in the name of this person we call the settlor. So he owns certain properties, land, shares, etc. So the first thing, identify the properties which you want to go to the trust. Then you engage a lawyer to help you prepare a document called a trust deed. This trust instrument will contain the three things we talked about at the beginning. Of course, it's talking about you as a settlor. Then it talks about the trustees, and it talks about the beneficiaries, and it will also include now the purpose of the trust and all other things you want to include in that trust deed. Then after you have done that, the trust is registered. And after you register it, now you do a normal transfer. You take this parcel of land, you do a transfer to that trust, and there you are. You are transferred.
Brilliant.
Yes.
You had talked about the benefits and tax implications and tax benefits.
Yes.
Exemptions was one of them.
Yes.
But how does that work? And are there tax implications for trusts?
There are several benefits of which you get when you establish a trust. The first one is income tax exemption. So income from a trust is generally exempted from payment of income tax.
Very interesting.
Especially for charitable organizations like churches, contributions made to those kind of trusts, charitable trusts, are also exempt from payment of tax. The third benefit is on stamp duty and capital gains tax. Registered family trusts, when you are transferring property to a registered family trust, you are exempted from paying stamp duty, which can be depending on the kind of property or what asset you are transferring. It can be 2-4% depending on the amount assessed, and capital gains tax.
I think that's one of the very best benefits for a property investor.
Yes. The key thing about tax exemptions is that tax regime keeps on changing, and it keeps on changing year by year. So it's very important at the time you are establishing the trust now to consult a tax expert to confirm which taxes you are exempted from, because it keeps on changing from year to year. Like when they make the new Finance Act, like now we are dealing with another one which is coming in the next month. So it's important to check what the tax regime is at that point in time.
Now, you talked about estate planning and how these trusts can be used for estate planning purposes. Speak a little bit more about that.
As you have said, a trust can be used for estate planning or succession planning, and that is through the establishment of what we are called the family trust, which is now recognized under the Trustee Perpetual Succession Act. Before then, people would just establish or declare a trust, and it's just a document people sign and it is taken by the trustees. But right now, from 2021, you can establish a family trust, register it, get a certificate, which is a separate legal entity from yourself, which you can own property. So what happens once you have a trust deed, then you register it under the Perpetual Succession Act. Then you'll have an entity through which or to which you can transfer the asset to that entity, and that entity then will manage all your assets during your lifetime and after you are departed.
In the event that you have a beneficiary conflict in conflict to the trustee, say somebody has sold property, how do you deal with that particular issue?
In a proper trust where everybody is doing what they are supposed to do, especially the trustees.
Yes.
The issue of a trustee sending land under the table, or any property or any asset of the trust, should not even arise and is not contemplated. The reason is there are key responsibilities of a trustee. One of them is the duty to act in a fiduciary manner. That is acting in an trustworthy manner. If he does anything which can be construed to mean is not acting in a trustworthy manner, then he can be removed. The other key responsibility is not to act in conflict with the trustee. Is the duty of loyalty. It should be loyal to the appointing authority, who is the settlor. If he is gone, it should be loyal to the beneficiaries. So he has that duty to be loyal. The other responsibility is to protect the assets of the trust. That is one of the key responsibilities. So that if he is protecting the assets, how can it arise that he has sold the property he is supposed to protect in the first place. It should not arise. Then the other duty is to account. When a properly drawn trust document, especially where it is involving money coming in and money going out, like you have businesses that are being run by a trust, so he has a duty to account to who? To the beneficiaries. That will require there will be audit, there will be regular meetings akin to the annual general meetings where audited accounts are presented. Then you account for what came in and what went out, and you pay the beneficiaries. The key responsibility is the duty to inform, to keep your beneficiaries updated on what is going on. They should not wake up one morning and they read something in the media and to hear that such and such a thing has happened. One of the key things I learned from some of the cases we have handled is just the failure to communicate. Because you don't communicate with your trustees, your beneficiaries, they start wondering what's going on. And then the rumors start flowing. And then within no time, you have disagreed with your beneficiaries. So those are some of the key responsibilities of a trustee, such that at the end of the day, if you don't keep your beneficiaries appraised of what is going on, is a key to disagreement.
Now, we're going to take a short commercial break. When we're back, more on trust. Keep those questions coming on the comment section. Stay tuned. Welcome back from the commercial break. We're here with Daniel Musyoka talking about trusts. Daniel, how can trust be used to protect properties in Kenya, property assets in Kenya?
One of which is to protect the properties from your creditors. Then, because once the property goes to your trust, it ceases being your property.
Yes.
And therefore, it is protected from your creditors. The other way of protecting, you separate the assets. You separate what you own and what is owned by the trust. Because what is owned by the trust belongs to the trust. What is owned by yourself is owned by yourself. The other one is you protect your property from, especially if you are involved in high-risk ventures. And then the final one is from relationship disputes. Probably a divorce, where we disagree as spouses, and then there's a claim of issues of matrimonial property. We have seen so many cases between spouses and all that. So when they are in a trust, then those properties are shielded from those relationship disputes like a divorce. Yes.
Brilliant. Now, can a trust be used to manage rental property?
Yes. A trust can be used to manage rental property. Once you establish the trust and you register the trust under the Trustee Perpetual Succession Act, the property you own, which is the rental property, you transfer to that entity. The entity then will manage the property. Yes.
What are the requirements for trusts and disclosures for trusts here in Kenya?
The Companies Act 2015, and with it came with certain regulations about disclosures. Before then, you could hold shares in a company through a trustee, and that trustee does not have a duty to disclose who the beneficiary is. So that you own the company, and the fact that he is holding the shares for your benefit is only known between the two of you. But under the regulations, which are called beneficial ownership information disclosure, now there is a requirement if the shares held have reached a certain threshold, 10%. So there are those disclosure requirements that the trustee is supposed to disclose and file with the registrar of companies, so that and it's important even to so that even for other considerations like issues of tax, issues of money laundering, and all that. So those requirements are there, so that you disclose who is the ultimate beneficiary.
So how do laws and regulations of trusts in different countries look? Are they the same as for Kenya, in America, and Europe? Speak into that.
For my general reading of laws in other countries, we are not yet there in terms of catching up with the modern requirements of trust, especially for family trusts. We still have a distance to cover, so that trusts are more used in our context or in Kenya, mostly on charitable organizations like the churches. They work. That's the traditional setup. So we are yet to accommodate even the family trusts, so that they can reap the benefits from other jurisdictions.
Speaking of other countries, can a trust own shares in a company that owns property in Kenya?
The trust, once it's registered, is an entity. Yes. It has what we call perpetual succession. Okay. It is not any different from a company. Okay. Therefore, the trust can, in its own name, like Peter Trust, it can own shares in a company in Kenya.
Super. Now, what are some of the common mistakes that you find when trusts are being formed? What do people overlook? Please speak into this.
Having a trust document which is inadequate, which does not envisage all what could happen. So it is short on certain things. So that document, should be drafted in a manner that it has captures at least most of the critical things. So if it is inadequate, it will be a challenge to implement. The other one, a common mistake, is when you don't register. You form it and you don't register it. Then it does not enjoy that benefit of perpetual succession, of that benefit of being able to own property in his own name. And the most significant one is when you choose from trustees. They'll mess you up.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Good. Remember, well-crafted trust, ladies and gentlemen, makes all the difference in safeguarding your property investment. This has been most delightful. We've had Daniel, who has just covered this topic comprehensively. So up until next week, same place, same time, happy investing.